Welcome to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me, Rob. Oh, we got some news for you.
all kinds of news here. We got new coaches. We got current coaches doing new roles. We got part 2 of the Dable versus Wink saga.
As a pizza
got all
Hut
kinds
rolls.
of news here. Yes. And then on top of that, we got actual topic today, guys. So we're going to go over with you guys potential targets for the New York Giants in free agency. So got a lot of big names here, guys. And listen, the Giants may not have a lot of money this offseason, but in the end, things happen. Things work. Things get done. Look at the Saints every single year. They find a way to get it done. They start the season $60 million over the cap space, yet still sign 2 Pro Bowlers. That's the kind of stuff they do. They figure it out,
Yeah, I mean, the Giants have done a pretty good job the past couple of years signing some pretty good talent, decent talent.
We move things around. Cheap. Well, I know some pretty good talent.
That's why I had to take it back. Yeah. Some decent talent.
Yeah, we weren't that good last year. So I don't know, pretty good talent, but yeah. So let's go over. Let's go over the new coaches first off, because that's the big one here. Welcome some new coaches here. First off, we talked about the last episode how we went ahead and interviewed former New Orleans Saints running backs coach Joel Thomas.
And you're hired.
And he's hired, exactly.
And you're hired. Sorry to interrupt.
Former, he wasn't former last time. He was the current. Again, this guy has worked with a lot of great running backs in New Orleans. It's hard to really judge specifically a assistant coach that does a position, because we're not behind the scenes to know how much they had to do with the success of the people in those positions. But I'll say this. In the end, you had Alvin Kamara, you had Ingram, you had guys that succeeded under this coach. So at the very least, you can say he's not a hindrance to success. Even if he's not an integral part of it, he's not going to hinder success at this position.
Yeah.
Hate to say it that way, guys, but that's what I can say. But again, I'll take it. Now, what's interesting today is the Saints went ahead and fired their offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael, along with senior offensive assistant Bob Bachnow and wide receiver coach Cody Burns. So it makes you wonder, maybe this is why he was eligible to be interviewed, because they plan on making this kind of move, and they plan on letting him go as well. And that's the only bit of pause that I have is like, okay, why wouldn't this guy go?
I mean, let's take a step back as well. I mean, let's look at the Saints offense last year. Not so good. But when your running back is pretty close of running yards as your offense has passing yards.
But they had a really bad yard per carry average. We talked about that. We played the Saints.
They did.
They did not do very good in yards per carry. They just ran the ball a lot.
Yeah.
So, I said, but if you go every year but this year, they were very good. So, let's take it. Let's see what happens. We'll roll with it. We're going to roll with it.
We'll blame their car.
And guess what? we have a miracle to announce. We have a second candidate for special teams coordinator that was not blocked by someone.
Oh, snap.
Oh, yes. Snapping the ball is part of the special teams.
Yeah.
There's even a specific guy who does it. He's called a long snapper. Oh, yes. It's not just a fish.
Or a tasty treat.
Giants are interviewing Chicago Bears assistant special team coordinator Carlos Polk. He's been in a position as an assistant with special teams basically almost since he left the league since 2010. Did 1 year in college. He's a former linebacker, played 8 years altogether with the league. So if he sounds familiar, the name, that might be why. He played 7 seasons with the Chargers, 1 with the Cowboys. So we'll have to see what happens. I just want this position filled already because I feel like we're getting to draft time soon. I mean, the Giants be pretty much already getting to draft time. I want the coordinators, the coaches in place.
It's divisional weekend coming up.
I know, but for us, I want the guys scouting players they want. I want these guys to go, okay, this is who I need to succeed. Let's get this growing. Let's get the coaches spots filled, guys. Here's another one here, which I gotta say, this is the coolest name ever to have on a business card. Executive Director of Player Performance. Ooh, that sounds fancy.
Super fancy.
Aaron Wellman was hired on Tuesday, yesterday, there for that position. He was our strength and conditioning coach under McAdoo and Shurmur. So again, the name might sound familiar. We know the Giants, what they love to do, hire people they know.
Oh, you're a fine lad. We've met before. You got a job.
You remind me of that other guy I liked.
I just fired.
He had the same name as him. But yeah, last 4 years he's been spent as the senior assistant athletic director for football performance at Indiana, including when Micah McFadden was there. So there's might be a little bit of relationship there. Who knows? The Giants might have had an inside track to know how things were going in Indiana for him through McFadden. So listen, I don't care who the guy is for that position. All I care is one thing. Let's keep the guys in the field for once. Because let's be honest, when this guy was the strength and conditioning coach, we still had a ton of injuries going on. Am I going to blame him solely on that? Obviously not. Again, it's just one thing of, wait a minute, hold on, what happened here kind of scenario with this guy. Because there was a ton of injuries back then. We also had the original MetLife turf monster back then. So how much of it was that? So again, I'm not blaming him. It's just things that make you go, Yes. So, all right. Let's get off the coaching carousel here, as we have the carousel background still from our last episode there. So let's get into some football news here, because we talked about the article that Pat Leonard, the clickbait artist himself, did. And Paul Schwartz of the New York Post came back and wrote his own article. And it's so funny because it's like Pat Leonard, I want to say he hates the Giants, but he understands that writing negative things about the Giants will get him clicks, will get him notoriety at that point. So Paul Schwartz is the complete opposite. Again, notice that he loves the Giants, but he understands as a Giant beat writer, if he writes positive things, the team gives him additional access potentially, because they know he's not going to write bad things about them. So you got people on two opposite ends of the spectrum here. So let's go over Paul Schwartz and what he had to say here. Oh, yes, the drama. So apparently Bobby likes Susie, and Susie broke up with Bobby, but... Oh my god. Anyway, the coaching staff apparently was known to eat together in the cafeteria, but Wink Martingdale and the Wilkins brothers, ate separately in an office behind closed doors. If that's not some high school cafeteria drama bullshit, what is?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Pretty
I'm so sorry.
How petty that is.
Like, I don't even know why that made it to the article. I wasn't or he kept ordering green beans. He knows I was more of an asparagus person, but kept getting green beans. How
dare he bring that asparagus rotten stench to the table? Eat in another room.
It smelled like pee. Figured it made sense. Everybody always says that pee smells like asparagus. Why does asparagus smell like pee?
It only happens to like 10% of people in the world.
I don't know. I've never. I prefer not to smell urine. That's just me. Call me crazy.
Hey, sometimes when you go, you just can't help it. You just get a whiff.
See, I'm very tall, so my nose is farther away.
Hey, listen, if you got a strong stream, you got a strong stream.
This is the topic I didn't be going into today. Anyway, In the week prior to the first matchup the Giants had against the Eagles, it was noticed that Timon Fox was wearing number 94 instead of 49, which he wore with the practice squad. Both Dable and Shane were unaware of the change. They investigated and found that Wink Martingdale requested the switch as he told the equipment room Fox would be active for the game that week, which was news to Dable and Shane, who, by the way, are the people who decide who's active and who's not on the roster that week, not Wink Martingdale. That is not a defensive coordinator job. They may make suggestions, but they're not the ones who make that final say. So, yeah, if that happened, that's some bullshit. Let's talk about the power struggle. Like I said, Wink is that guy. You ever work with a guy who gets passed over for promotions, but he thinks he deserves the promotions, therefore he actually has it already?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's Wink. And granted, we're not behind the scenes enough to know as far as that kind of stuff to be there and see it. But it's like, I feel like I got that vibe even with the Pat Leonard piece, which was supposed to make Wink look like he was okay for doing what he did. And I got that vibe even more with this Paul Schwartz beats. Like, he just wants to be a head coach so much, he's just making head coach decisions, even though he's not one.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
he let his ego get in the way of his decision making.
Yep, exactly. So they all said Joe Shane did listen through the headsets for the 4 games, as the Pat Leonard article had said was the case. They said, though, that he sensed there was trouble brewing. Oh, yes, there was some trouble brewing. And he wasn't asked by anyone to actually listen in. He just decided himself because of that sense. During the Commander game, this is the game that Paul Schwartz is talking about. He's the one that Pat Leonard had said that Dable blamed Wink and basically said, don't lose this game for us like we guys did with the Jets game. No, according to Paul Schwartz, during the game, Dable complained after penalties by both Jihad Ward and Kayvon Thibodeau that it was reminding him of a key penalty Kayvon had late in the Jets game, which is what allowed that drive to continue, which is what allowed the Jets to score and beat us in that game. He did not blame the defense on the loss specifically. He was just frustrated with the outside linebackers continually doing penalties under bad scenarios, which is interesting because who coached the outside linebackers? Drew Wilkins. Just saying, that all comes full circle there.
I was saying, who was did Dable and Shane want to let go? Which crosses whole thing?
Drew Wilkins. Like I said, I don't know if that's part of why he got fired in the end, or if it's just trying to break up the buddy party that he had with them. But it's like, if that's what he complained, I get it. There's a difference between blaming someone on a loss and saying you made a crucial penalty that contributed to the loss. There is a difference. You may not notice it in the heat of the moment because you're heated, you're frustrated, especially if you're Wink, you're probably frustrated because your defense is so much better than the offense. I get it. I really do. But there's a difference. Yeah. Now the question comes into be, which report is true? How much do you believe? And I'll tell you point blank. We always said there's 2 sides and the middle is the truth. This is definitely one of those scenarios.
100%.
This is definitely. One of them is a hit piece on Dable. One of them is a fluff piece on the Giants.
Yeah. Every story has at least 3 sides. Your side, my side, and the truth. And sometimes you got a little bit in the middle.
And every rose has its thorn.
Every rose.
Just like every cowboy sings a sad, sad song.
Yeah. Every night has its dawn.
Oh my God. Who would have thought Poison would come up tonight? Poison of all hands. Anyway, we got some good news coaching wise. Mike Kafka, who, again, who knows if he's actually going to be our offensive coordinator next year because he is still interviewing for head coaching jobs in the interim. I don't think he'll get one personally. If you've said that before, I'm still kind of shocked that he's getting interviews even. But he will be a head coach this season. I guarantee it.
Oh, yes.
At the Shriners Bowl, where he's going to be the head coach of the West team. So Yeah, honestly, that's a good spot though for him. I like that. It gives him a chance to kind of showcase him running a team for at least if it's just a week. It's still a national spotlight of him running a team. That's a good thing for him in his career. So, all joking aside, and the issues we have with him aside, kudos to him. That's a nice get for him. Shea Tierney and Mike Adams will be coordinators also at the Reese's Senior Bowl. So obviously Shea Tierney is our quarterback coach. Mike Adams, for those who aren't aware, obviously the name probably sounds familiar because he was a former NFL player for quite a long time. Just completed his first year as an assistant in the special teams department there. So kudos to those guys. Well, again, I like this for the Giants because anytime you have people within your coaching staff coaching at these exhibit games with the seniors, the top players coming on this draft, it gives you time with them. It gives you a chance to see how coachable they are. It gives you a chance to see what they're like personality-wise. Now, at the same point, obviously these guys will be on their best behavior because the spotlight's on them. But you still get access to them you wouldn't get otherwise. So I'm all for it. Definitely like it. I want to see this more often there. All right. Let's get into the comments here real quick because Connor's got a couple comments here. And then let's get into the actual topic here. Connor says, "Are you a goofball?" I am. In fact, I am a giant goofball. I am a giant goofball. He says, "How about Bill Belichick, head coach, and does defense, and Dable, offensive coordinator, assistant head coach?" No, that's not.
That sounds silly.
That's not going to happen.
Connor, have you ever taken a demotion and sat there and said how great it is to take a demotion?
Yeah. But you know what? It's kind of like
I hear what you're saying. It's fan theories. Like it might sound great on paper, but why would you step back?
It looks like here's the thing with the whole thing. I get the point on that. A, I don't think Bill Belichick wants to coach the Giants. He wants to coach a team that's ready to win. But B, it's almost like using the analogy of let's say you are in a band. And the band is up and coming. You think you have a shot to do something special next album. And all of a sudden, the band comes up to you and says, "Hey, guys, we're going to make a change. Slash has decided to play guitar for us. You're going to be now our backup guitarist, assistant guitarist."
Yeah.
You wouldn't like that very much. You'd be like, "No, I want to do a little thrashing."
Vocals.
Listen, Axl Rose can't even do Guns N' Roses vocals anymore. I'm telling you right now, if you want a funny time, just Google Axl Rose on TikTok right now and hear, oh my God, it's bad. Well, him and Enrique Iglesias both are horrible live, apparently, and it's hilarious.
I mean, if we're going to go to the Guns N' Roses thing, Axl Rose hit puberty finally. Cocaine and smoking for 30 years also hit him pretty hard.
Well, also, he's in his 60s and try to sing like that for that many years. That's not good for your voice. Anybody who knows singing and does vocals can tell you that's not good for your voice.
Well, I mean, if that's his natural voice, it's one thing. But I mean, when his tight pants finally got tighter because everything dropped, smoking Newports for 30 to 40 years.
Buffet line.
Yeah, 30 to 40 years of smoking Newports and doing all the other, extra activities, if you will. It's also not good on the vocal track.
As an ex-smoker, it's been years since I smoked a cigarette. I still miss the cigarettes at times. There's something about the smell I still enjoy. I don't know why. I'm weird like that.
Yeah, it really smells different. Anyway,
but most people hate the smell. I still like it. Connor says, "Drew, what do you think about Penix Jr. now that he lost in the national title game? Off night, it would. He had a problem with defenses, especially if we don't fix the offensive line." And then I'll copy that onto with Deb as well because she put on there wanted opinion on Penix too. Looked too much like Jones in the title game. Overwhelmed. Honestly, I thought to me the whole team looked overwhelmed.
Yeah,
and it's not to say that Penix had a good game, but it just kind of was like, look at it go. The whole team was overmatched. So could Penix have played better? Yes, but I have a whole season of him playing better. So does it give me a little bit of pause? Yes. Anytime you see a player struggle, it's going to give you a pause, especially in a big game. but it doesn't cause me to not want to take him. I still would take him personally. Again, it depends on where we're at. It depends on what's available. There's so many variables to it. But if I had to pick a fourth quarterback in this draft behind Caleb, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, he's still my fourth.
Yeah, I agree. Not everyone's going to have a great game all the time.
Except me.
Yes, it was in the spotlight. It was definitely not a good look trying to get drafted at a better spot. But at the same time, it's still college football. And you go to the NFL, not everything you do in the NFL relates. And half the guys are going to get drafted on Michigan. Are they going to look as great as they did in that title game? Probably not. The thing is, are they cushionable? Can you fix some of those flaws, and can you make that work in the NFL? That's the difference.
Yeah.
Because if you're at a college level, that's one level, and then you're taking like a quadruple step up to go to the NFL. And not all players that look fantastic in the NFL can look that great. And then some guys, a few years back that are drafted last in the NFL are starters at quarterback like Brock Purdy, who never made it to the title game.
Yeah. And I'll say this as well. It's funny because Connor, I put this one up out of order because you put how about JJ McCarthy? He played pretty good. He threw good that night too. I didn't think he was that good. He looked like a game manager to me. I mean, if you look at the numbers from that night, JJ McCarthy, 10 of 18, 140 yards. Michael Penix Jr., 27 to 51, 255 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Neither one of them had a good night. Yeah. But again, I think that Penix has that special factor. I don't think J.J. McCarthy does. I think J.J. McCarthy is a system quarterback. Personally,
he kind of looked more like an Alex Smith.
I wouldn't even say that. I think Alex Smith is a better quarterback. I think he's a guy.
We got NFL talent on Alex Smith, so that's a little different.
I think, honestly, okay, I'm going to give this as the
I'm not saying that's who he was.
What I'm saying that's. And I'm still going to do more research on McCarthy, so I may change my opinion over time. I'm still saying is that once the NFL season is fully over is when I'll do my full sit down and everything. But from what I've seen of J.J. McCarthy, I wouldn't say Alex Smith. I would say this, Trent Dilfer. He's a guy who may start this league for a little bit, maybe an average guy, but I don't think he's a guy that is going to win without a ton of talent around him.
Probably.
That's like I said, I may change my opinion when I do more research, but the games I've watched of him this year and the film I have watched so far, that's my opinion of J.J. McCarthy. Michael Penix, like I said, I think he has the best outside of the top 3 that everybody wants to talk about and everybody thinks he may not have a shot at where we're drafting currently. Out of everybody else, that's who I like personally. We'll see. Let's hear that. We're going out of order, so I have to go back here. Connor says, funny Bill isn't taking his kids with him. They're staying with Patriots. That's because he has a ton of respect for the Patriots, though. It really does. Connor says, I'll take demotion if I'm getting paid millions. LOL. You're getting paid millions either way. Why take the demotion if you're going to get millions either way? That's the difference.
Yeah.
So then my dad chimes in and says, I don't want Penix. He's immobile and will be like a deer in headlights behind our D-line, behind our O-line. See, my dad and I don't always agree on football. It's funny because we do a lot of the show here whenever he chimes in, and he watches a lot of college football. My dad does. So I know he watches more than I do during the season at that point. But like I said, from what I've seen and what I've watched so far, that's where I'm at. And things may change with any of these quarterbacks. Once the Super Bowl is over and Rob and I go into full-on draft scout mode, that's when we'll have more of a dive. And we'll probably do an individual episode on all the big quarterbacks this year because I'm that confident that the Giants will select a quarterback. If not, we may do like we did last year with the corners and the wide receivers, do like 2 per episode and do a battle of the top ones and kind of give our final thoughts on the quarterbacks because We did that last year because we knew we're probably taking a corner. We knew we're probably taking a wide receiver. We picked the positions we knew we'd take. I think it's a safe bet to say we're going to take a quarterback this draft.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll probably do something like that at the very least with it. If not, like I said, do individual breakdowns on those quarterbacks there. Connor says the defense was great at Michigan that night for sure. Maybe we get that D coordinator. We'll see. I haven't. It's funny. There's a lot of names I've heard thrown out there. I have not heard a top guy as far as, hey, this is the guy it's his job to lose kind of scenario. So, but we shall see. All righty. Let's get into the topic of the night here, because the topic of the night is, oh yes, free agency as the Bills come dropping down behind us here. Look at that money. I want to grab all that money behind us. Making it rain. Rob's at a strip club here. I'm kind of scared because on a webcam with me.
Hey, I'm wearing my sweatpants.
All right, let's get into potential. Now, I broke this down to some categories for you guys here. I talked about. I try to give you guys a couple of outside the box shocker kind of names as well. I'll be first one to admit that some of these guys are out there. You might go, wait, there's no way in hell the Giants would be interested in these people. I'll give you a reason why I think they will.
They gotta be listed.
I did not also list some of the big names. I will tell you that up front. I did not list in there T. Higgins, because I don't think there's a shot in hell the Bengals let him go.
No, look what happened last year when everyone was talking about,
he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I did not list Derrick Henry, which I know I've heard some Giant fans whisper about. We don't want a 30-year-old running back, guys. That's not a position you spend a lot of money on.
If we're talking about we're not going to keep Barkley because of his age, why would we pick up?
Let's get his grandfather.
Yeah. We've seen
like 4 years old or whatever.
Way more tread in those tires compared to Barkley.
Oh yes. So like I said, fair warning that there's some of those guys you'll go, wait a minute, what about so and so? There's a reason why some of these guys, I just don't think they're going to be available. And there's even some names that I'm going to list that very well may get tagged and not go on in the free agent market. We just don't know who it's going to be yet. So let's get into the names here. So I got an interesting name at quarterback. And I'll say this. I know a lot of people are saying Kirk Cousins. I've heard that rumor floated around like crazy. For those who think we don't draft a quarterback, I don't think there's a shot in hell that Kirk Cousins leaves Minnesota. I really don't. They don't have any they don't have any quarterback to take over the spot. And on top of that, you saw what happened to this team when he left.
Yeah. I'm 50-50 if he leaves Minnesota. I don't think the Giants are going to take on that kind of salary cap for
that's the other part of it. Yeah, you're gonna pay him $40 million. Pay Daniel Jones $40 million. Have an $80 million.
Everyone bitch about how much we're paying DJ. You're going to take another quarterback and do that and hit our salary cap.
And on top of that, I'm sorry, Kirk Cousins, by all reports and everything I've seen with this guy, seems like a really nice guy. Like seriously, he's a guy that he
seems like a really good Christian.
Yeah, like he probably is the guy that you'd have a beer with, would go to Lowe's together and pick out a drill or something like that. Like he seems like that guy who wear New Balances and all. But
he would probably help you paint your house.
Exactly, like he's that guy. Like he's not the guy who's going to lead your team to victory. I'm sorry, we've seen him enough. We've had enough years of him that if he was going to be the guy to lead a team to a championship, he probably would have done it by now.
Yeah, I think you get the argument. Can he be the bridge quarterback? Yeah, he could. But once again, are we going to pay $80 million next year for quarterbacks?
God, no. If we didn't have DJ, I'd be all about that for maybe like a 3-year contract, only 1 year guaranteed, and see what happens kind of thing. I would be all about that. That'd be a great idea. Let the guys sit, because as much as no other team does it, there's a reason Green Bay does what they do with quarterbacks. It's a nice thing.
It's amazing what they've done.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to give you guys one name, though. One name. A quarterback.
One name to excite them all.
That I think is a little outside the box, but it's a guy that I could see where this guy, I know this guy wants to start in the league again. I've seen reports on that. He was talked out of asking for a trade this midseason, actually. He's a guy that if you believe Dable can fix a quarterback, this is the guy to look at because I think he'd be cheap. I think he'd be good overall, potentially, if you can fix one major problem with him. And that's Jameis Winston, who's going to be still just 30 years old, which, I mean, again, it's funny we talk about that being so old for a running back, but for a quarterback, you got 5-6 years probably.
But say you're still going to prom with that.
On the season, 6 games, 25 of 47 passing, 53.2 completion percentage, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. About what you expected, Jameis Winston. That's what he's done. Now, if you are of the camp that says the Giants should not draft a quarterback, or let's just say you don't want to force a quarterback and there's just not one there when we're going to pick, I think you could do a lot worse than Jameis Winston as a cheap contract to go in there and give a legit competition with Daniel Jones.
I was impressed that you put, we were talking about this guy before I could say anything, because I was talking about how he should start for the Saints for half the season.
You just wanted to see all the fun touchdowns on both sides.
Yes.
The interceptions. And that's the thing. Listen, what was the one issue that we talked about nonstop with Daniel Jones before Dable got here?
Turnovers.
What has he not done the last 2 years besides play much last year?
I was about to say, he turned the ball over that much. Granted, he probably turned the ball over just as many times in a quarter of the games this past season than he did last year.
You know what, though? I guarantee you I can look at his numbers, and God forbid I'm the one saying something positive about Daniel Jones, okay? He had 6 Hold on. Here's what I'm trying to say, though. He had 6 interceptions this year in his limited action. 3 of those, half of those, came off the hands of Saquon Barkley into a defender.
Yes, but I mean, at the
end of the day, those plays.
At the end of the day, he's still the leader of the team, that he has to take responsibilities.
Oh, I'm not saying otherwise as far as that. That's the answer you want from him. But if you're realistically looking at what happened, I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I got you.
So, again, I want to draft a quarterback. I don't want the Giants to force the pick. Forcing a pick is the worst thing you could possibly do. And to me, there's a whole lot worse you can do than that. Now, if I had my way, we don't get a quarterback, I would want to talk to the Lions about trading for Hendon Hooker personally. But you can do a lot worse than a guy who's got starting experience, that's cheap, that I think we can go ahead and potentially fix the problems because of the fact that we've already seen Dable fix that problem with someone else on this team.
Yeah, and he's definitely the guy, though, has the arm talent. He has the arm strength. And
he definitely does.
And he's not afraid to throw deep balls down the field. Granted, the Giants will probably limit that as they try to work on his turnovers. But I recall this guy coming up and having like a 370-yard game, 4 touchdowns, and 3 picks. And it's like, you look at those numbers. There's a couple brothers in the league that, they're both retired now, that have done similar stats. And they've also both won Super Bowls. So is it the worst thing?
Yeah.
You don't want turnovers, but if he's throwing off the yards and he's getting those touchdowns.
To me, it's just an interesting option that I haven't heard besides you and I talk about it. And it's outside the box, but it's there. It's cheap. He's not going to want a ton of money, guys. He'll take $5 million.
Yeah.
He'll take it. So, all right. I'm purposely skipping the running back position, guys. Again, we talked about with the Derrick Henry thing. If we're going to take a free agent, we're going to wait till someone becomes cheap. Because every year that is. Every single year. So let's go over some wide receivers, because that's one thing. I still think we could use one wide receiver on this team. What my preference would be make the tall, go up and grab the touchdown kind of guy, a possession style receiver, kind of like Isaiah Hodgins was for us last year, and we were hoping it'd be again this year, but people kind of figured him out. You know, kind of like we were hoping Kenny Golladay was going to be. That kind of player. So we got a couple of guys that do fit that kind of mold there, so to speak. First up, the biggest name, and I'm only including this guy because I've heard people mention him like crazy. I'm kind of breaking my own role there. He's not going to be available, guys.
No, he's probably going to stay with his team.
As somebody who lives in the Tampa Bay area, Mike Evans will retire a Tampa Bay Buck. Trust me on that. He is going to go down as one of the best players to ever put on that uniform. That's what he is. And he's probably one of the most underrated receivers in NFL history. I'm telling you that right now.
By the casual fan, fantasy players love that guy.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy who literally puts up 1,000 yards a season. Like nothing.
Flew under the radar doing that.
Almost 12,000 receiving yards in his career, guys. And he's just 30 years old. He's probably got another 4 or 5 years before he starts becoming, a 600-yard guy kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy that, if you want to talk about guys that are climbing up the ranks of most yards ever kind of situation, this is a guy that's, if he can stay healthy and have the kind of long career that you hope, yeah, this is going to be, I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a guy that's going to go ahead and creep up those kind of ranks because he's about 6,000 yards away, guys, from Larry Fitzgerald to take second overall. He's about halfway to Jerry Rice. He is only 4,500 yards away from T.O. and Randy Moss.
The problem with Rice had a quarterback. He had a little more talent around him constantly. But I know what's
the weird thing about this. Who did Mike Evans have a lot of success with? Jameis Winston.
Yeah, it's true.
But again, he's not going to be available, guys. I'm only including him because I keep hearing Giants fans talk about him nonstop.
It'd be amazing to get Winston and Evans.
Listen, I wouldn't hate it. Anyway, on this year, he had 17 games, 79 receptions, 1,255 yards, and 13 touchdowns. But again, guys, he won't be available. I'm throwing it out there right now. Next up, I want to bring this guy up because everybody loves to bring him up every single free agency time period there.
Clickbait.
Yeah, it's where he's at. And listen, I almost don't want to include him because I don't think we should include him there. But I guess I'm going to. Odell Beckham Jr. That was a 1-year deal he had with the Ravens, guys. But what did he do with the Ravens? 14 games, 35 receptions, 565 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he's 31. I'm not opposed to bringing OBJ back. I am opposed to paying him any kind of money.
Yeah.
He's not the player he was.
Didn't he just come out like dissing the Giants?
He always disses the Giants. What he said was the Giants sent him to Cleveland to die and didn't take the best deal because he thinks there was better deals out there for him. What it really is his ego thought he was worth more and the Giants didn't take as much. So, yeah, he can deal. Remember, he went there with Javaris Landry and stuff like that. It was his buddy in college and everything. Like, he got a huge, I just, to me, no. He just likes the attention. And this is the issue I have with him. But he still has talent. Not anywhere near what he had.
Himself in the spotlight gives him like the better opportunity to make more money and go somewhere else.
I also am a little concerned with the fact that he rented a boat for all the Ravens during the playoffs here. That's a little concerning, guys. Like, OBJ, don't you know? We're still talking about you and your boat from 2017 or whatever year that was. Yeah.
Boats and hose.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's get into some more realistic options here. Because here's the other thing to think about, guys. We don't have top money. We're not going to be able to go ahead and get top money, guys. It's just not. It's what it's going to be. But I do think we could potentially get one of these guys here as a guy who wants to take a spot at the top receiver on a league for a quick deal and then try to get a big payday after that, like a 2-3 year kind of deal, that kind of thing. This is what I could see happening. I said I wasn't going to bring up T. Higgins. I didn't say I wasn't going to bring up a Bengals receiver. See what I did there.
Oh, I saw what you did. I saw what
Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, 29 years old, so still not. Again, none of these guys are young guys because young receivers don't become available if they're really good guys. If you want to go ahead and get them, then you better go ahead and draft them. That's the rule. So people forget that before Jamar Chase got there, Tyler Boyd was a really good receiver for them. He's a 2-time 1,000-yard receiver. And T. Higgins got there. Jamar Chase got there, and he kind of started going a little bit down the depth chart. He's their third receiver, guys. As their third receiver, 17 games, 67 receptions, 667 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's would have been like our second receiver, close to our top receiver. And he's their third option at wide receiver.
And he spent half the year with the
guys.
backup. Over. Yeah,
very good point. Very good point. Very good point there. Yeah, I mean, that's actually his worst season he's had since 2017, guys. Now, do I think he's a stud number 1 receiver? No. But I do think he's a potential number 1 receiver on our team based on our current roster. So, interesting.
Close to be it.
Interesting.
Depends on what Waller does this year.
Let's see here. I got another guy, similar age, that I would take a gamble on. No pun intended.
Ayo.
Calvin Ridley. Ayo. 29 years old as well, coming off a really good comeback year there with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, the Jaguars have multiple receivers. If you want to go, they're really the top guy possession-wise and all. It's not him. He's like third on that chart, basically. You want to go behind Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. But he still put up a hell of a year. 76 receptions, 1,016 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's after missing a year. I think he's a guy that is going to be a legit number 1 wherever he goes, and he's rebuilt his value. But because of the fact that he had the issue with the gambling, because he's 29, because of the fact that, again, he played in Jacksonville where you don't necessarily get all the media credit that you get in some of the bigger other cities there. I wonder what that does to his cost. And I wonder if that makes him obtainable. And I think he'd be a guy that would completely change his offense. Out of all the guys I put on this list, he's the guy I'd want the most.
100%.
I can't believe he's 29 years old, though. Is it just me, or does it feel like he just got drafted like 3 years ago?
I mean, definitely not. I mean, he spent the year out of there.
Like I had to do a double take. I had to do a double take though. I really did, and go like, oh my god, what year? How many years has he been playing? I mean, he played 4 years in Atlanta.
Yeah, year off due to gambling.
And then the 1 year now in Jacksonville. So he's played 5 years, but 6 years technically, if you think about the year off at that point there. So yeah, I mean, but again, that's a legit number 1 threat there potentially. So I like him. I think that's a good option for us. Giving us a couple of tight end options here too, guys, because who doesn't love a good tight end? Oh yeah,
everyone loves tight end.
And Darren Waller, guys. Darren Waller is going to be a guy that I think personally we're potentially not going to keep. I know that Joe Shane said he plans on keeping Darren Waller in that press conference, the same press conference where he said Wink Martingdale will be back. That one.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So he's making too much money. I think unless they rework that deal, he's going to be gone, personally. So I got you a couple options, guys. Now, none of these are big-name guys like we're talking about there with Darren Waller. And I'm not even sold that's the way to go in free agency. Honestly, I'd rather draft one. I'd rather draft somebody like the 3rd, 4th round, 5th round, maybe. The 3 to 5 is where like that sweet spot for tight ends are for some reason. It's funny how half the guys who you draft in the 1st round bomb and don't make it. But the 3rd to 5 round, for some reason, that's the spot. That's the sweet spot.
That's how you get them.
So first one I got is Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's 29 years old. That's a guy who feels like he's been playing forever.
Yeah,
same age as Calvin Ridley. It feels like he's been playing forever. 14
well,
games
he never
this
got
year,
suspended.
42 receptions, 419 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Now, keep in mind the quarterbacks he had throwing him this year in New England as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put them together, they're still better than Brown over as the second string and Bengals.
And part of why I'm looking at these guys is because I've said it before, but to reiterate, I was very disappointed with the sophomore season of Bellinger. It's not to say I'm giving up on him, not to say he can't get back to where I thought he was, but I just wasn't impressed with his sophomore year, especially compared to what he did the freshman year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables when it comes to that. I wasn't that upset.
I didn't think his blocking was as good even. He had penalties at bad times. It's not even just the receiving part. I expected the receiving to go down because of Waller.
Yeah.
But even when Waller was gone, which was half the season, I mean, it wasn't like Bellinger was that security blanket he was the year before.
He also didn't have the same quarterback throwing to him.
I agreed, but I'm just saying, I was disappointed in the sophomore year for him. So we do have one bigger name that I'm going to throw out there that I don't think the Giants have a shot in hell of getting because I just don't think they're going to want to pay him. Dalton Schultz, 27 years old for the Texans, former Cowboy, 15 games, 59 receptions, 635 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Again, I think he'll want too much money for what the Giants can afford to pay. We're bargain bin shopping this year, guys, for the most part. We have like one, maybe 2 splashes. It's all bargain bin after that.
Especially the way the Texans are playing. Like, I see them trying to keep on to Schultz because he's done.
Oh, I would tag him.
Great. Oh, yeah.
I would tag him in a heartbeat.
Very, very well for the Houston. And
a young quarterback's best friend is a tight end.
Yeah, and he proved it. Both of them proved it.
Yeah, exactly. I got one more name I'm going to give you guys. I gave you guys this guy last year as well. We didn't get him. This guy grew up a Giants fan. Has openly said he wants to play for the Giants. Born in Lakewood, New Jersey. Those who are aware of the Jersey area. 28 years old. Also played for the Patriots last year. Mike Gesicki, who I think would be extremely cheap because he's coming off of what's a really bad year for him. 17 games, 29 receptions, 244 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, he was playing a backup role to Hunter Henry. Again, he had horrible quarterbacks. But again, he's going to be cheap. I like the idea of cheap guys that, you get enough of these guys, 1 or 2 is going to pan out. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying 100%. Pan out like they're okay players. Like, they're all going to be okay players. Mike Gesicki's not going to be a bad player if you're looking for a receiving tight end. He's just not necessarily going to be a great one.
Yeah, and
he's Waller. He's basically a receiver that plays tight end.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair to say he's a smaller tight end, but he's also the guy that's.
Well, he's not that. He's this thin. He doesn't block. He doesn't do anything. He's a receiving tight end. That's all he is.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to get at there. I was going to say, he's competitive. He's in the NFL. He's going to be a competitive guy, but he's also going to be probably more competitive playing for his team that he's always dreamed of playing for.
Exactly.
And you can get him for cheap. Take advantage.
Seriously, like I said, he's a lot better than Lawrence Cager.
Yeah, 100%.
A lot better than Lawrence Cager. Now, half of our episode here talking about potential free agents for the Giants is going to be this one section here. that I'm sure you guys really want to talk about here. Offensive line. Let's be honest, this has been a thorn in the Giants' side for the last 35 years, it feels like. We haven't had a good offensive line since we won a Super Bowl. Coincidence? I think not. This is why we had that problem. So I'm going to give you guys the first name here, one that I keep hearing over and over again. Kevin Zeitler, ex-Giant, 33 years old, played for the Ravens last year. There's not much needs to be said. He's solid as they come, guys. This is a legit top 10 guard in the league kind of potential kind of player at that point there. He was very good for the Giants. He's that lunch pail, does his job, doesn't make big mistakes. But there was definitely some bad blood when he left the Giants as well. And I know that there was a lot of talk about, okay, that was the prior regime. It doesn't matter sometimes, guys. If a franchise you feel like didn't do you right, that's what happens. You don't want to deal with them again. So I'm not going to get into what they did or didn't do them right because there's too much behind the scenes conversations that we don't get privy to at that point. But that's what, like I said, unless he doesn't hold a grudge against the franchise itself, I don't see it happening. The other concern is the fact that he's 33 years old.
Yeah, that's definitely a guy you don't sign to a 5-year contract.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's not even just that. It's like you're going to put this guy in. Let's say you put him in to give him a 3-year contract. At the end of the 3 years, he's 36 years old. You're hoping to be good at that point. We're not going to become great overnight, guys. That's not the way the world works. Unless we draft a quarterback that just lights it up like C.J. Stroud did.
Yeah, well, that's generation talent. That's a little different. That's a little, yeah.
I know. Next up, so one I keep hearing people talk about nonstop, and I'm going to say I'm not high on this guy. I'm going to tell you that, guys, right now. I am not high on this guy at all. But I'm putting him on the list because I know a lot of people are. Connor Williams.
Well, he definitely fits
not to be confused with Connor Wallace. It's not Connor Wallace. Connor Williams.
Yeah.
26 years old from the Dolphins. Yeah.
And he definitely fits the Giants' MO.
Yes. Tore his ACL just last month. I mean, he's a great player, but when would he be ready? He also played mostly. Most of his success came at the center position, which we already have as center. We just drafted. We're not going to move him around now. He can play guard though too. So I mean, you have that option there. But like I said, to me, I'm not messing with a guy who's coming off an ACL. That's a bigger name out there and primarily plays center. It doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
Here's a name that does interest me. And I talked about this guy all during the offseason, nonstop. Dalton Risner. Went to the Vikings this year after playing for the Broncos. Here's the thing with Dalton. Got a little bit of an anger attitude issue at times. And that's I think it's hurt him because people have seen it on the sidelines. I'm not there for those conversations. I don't know how much of that is just passion during the game. I don't know how much of that is he's a jerk. I don't know. It could be either way. But what I can tell you is he's had an above average grade at pass protecting for 5 years in a row and has succeeded at multiple locations. Because that's part of what I look at with linemen, guys. It's not just what have they done the last year or two? What have they done for their whole career? Because sometimes people succeed because of a system they're in, a scheme they're in at a particular place. That's not Dalton. He's been multiple places. He succeeded everywhere.
Yeah, some guys are just good. They don't need the coach.
Now, I could counter that and say Mark Lewinsky was the same scenario. And obviously he didn't succeed here. But I'll still say we have a new coach, and that's what I'm hoping it was again, was the coaching scenario. But anyway, Dalton. There he is. Next up, we have another ex-Giant that I've heard a lot of Giants fans throw this name out there as well, so I wanted to throw him out there for you guys.
Because he's
Rob knows I'm not a big fan of the guy.
Yeah.
Cost us a game last year. I'm still holding a grudge here. John Feliciano, 31 years old now, played for the Niners this year. ex-Giant, moved to guard this season and did perform very well. I'm going to give him that. He did perform very well. I'm going to also say playing guard next to Trent Williams. Maybe not the toughest task in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, again, he's a better guard than a center. We learned what he was that one. And what do we need? We need a guard. We need 2 guards potentially, depending on what you want to do with Neal. I know some people want to move him over to guard. I want to try that as well myself personally, but I don't know if the Giants want to, and that's what the deciding factor in this is. What do the Giants want to do? I did still find it interesting at the end of the season when they had the press conference, they didn't talk about Evan Neal at all. As far as, oh yeah, he's our future. He's our right tackle next year.
Yeah,
we have a lot of that was interesting. That was the first time you didn't hear them like glowingly talk about a guy who openly sucks. So
yeah, I was
interesting to see. But again, John Feliciano would be cheap. Again, we're at the bargain basement shopping, guys. We're in the bargain basement. One guy
discount double check.
One guy who's not a bargain basement that I'm going to mention because he's considered by some to be the top name this year in the free agent market at the guard position. Kevin Dotson, 27 years old, played for the Rams last year. Like I said, considered the top guard by many on the market there. Always been good in pass protection, but really improved it this year in run blocking. And that's what's made him someone that people are interested in because he used to be very good in pass pro, but wasn't very good at opening holes in the run game. He learned something apparently in LA because all of a sudden he's doing it last year. So a lot of people are intrigued by him. And again, I like the option of a guy like that. I just don't know if we're going to be able to afford him. I think he's going to command over $10 million a year. I think he'll be that kind of guard this offseason. We don't have that kind of money. Don't have it. Unless you want our splash to be a guard. It's not very splashy, but it is a need.
It is 100% a need.
Yeah.
But you also got to commit to paying the guy for multiple years to come if that's the splash you're making.
Yeah. And I'm telling you guys, there are tons of guards, guys. This is a year of tons of guards. Like, it's a stacked. We're like halfway through this list, guys, of guards and linemen here.
So many guards.
So many guards.
Guards.
Next up, Robert Hunt, also of the Dolphins, 27 years old, played tackle in his rookie year and did okay. Didn't do bad, but he's been a guard the last 3 seasons, and that's what he's done mostly. He's a great run blocker, doesn't embarrass himself in pass protection, but I wouldn't exactly consider that his forte. Considering we embarrassed ourselves like crazy in pass protection, that would still be probably an upgrade for us.
Yeah.
So can't sit there and say he'd be my top choice, but I wouldn't be upset. I think it's still an upgrade over what we had.
Hey, Tua didn't get cussed this year.
Yeah. He didn't get Kukua concussed. To Kukua. I said Kukua. What the hell?
Yeah.
Tua concussed. Kukua. I got COVID brain from last week still. It's okay. Next up, Ezra Cleveland, 25 years old, played for the Jaguars last year. Was a Brown prior to that for a few years there. Great run blocker overall. This is kind of the same deal as Robert Hunt there with the last guy we talked about there. Better in run than he is in pass protection. But he's had some struggles occasionally, just makes some miscues, but he's not horrible in it. But every so often you're going to see a play and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's better than us last year because that's all we ever did was go, what the hell? You know? As for some reason, Connor's doing Flash.
Flash.
All right. We're going to do next one or two without Rob because he's got a baby crying. A baby with 4 legs. Next up is Damian Lewis, 26, out of St. Louis. Rough start to his career. He looked really bad when they first put him in, guys. But really gotten better each of the last couple of seasons there, especially in pass protection. So you get a guy that showed improvement that we don't know if we're actually see the ceiling of. And again, he's 26 years old, not a bad age. John Runyon. This is junior, of course, obviously not senior. Obviously, the older Giants fans remember John Runyon from his days with the Eagles. Well, his son's been playing for the Packers the last couple of years. Been above average in pass protection. The only issue has been with him is he doesn't move well in space. So if you put him in a position where you're asking him to be a pulling guard, working screens, things of that nature, that's just not his forte. He doesn't do it well. So you're asking him to do what he doesn't do well. And when that happens, what happens, guys? Mistakes happen. One more guy there that I'm going to give kind of a broad statement on one thing here. Jonah Jackson, 26 years old from the Lions. Really good run blocker, but does need some work in the passing game. I'm including him mostly because of where he played. He played for one of the best lines in the NFL, guys. There's nothing wrong with plucking from places of success. Always been a fan of that. I'm not sure because of the fact that he needs work in the passing game that he's the one I'd want in that theory. But again, he's better than who we've had. So, last thing. I'm not going to rehash this, guys, with you guys. If you guys want to go ahead and take a look, we hired Priscillo. We did a whole segment on him. We discussed a lot of guys that were on, the Raiders line that are free agents. Again, go back to that episode, not just because it helps us, but because it's a really good episode. But we talked about literally they had their whole right side of the line, their center, a backup center that has a fiance that plays for the New York Liberty. There's a lot of guys on that Raiders offensive line, and I would not be shocked at all if we got one of them, at least, if not two. So take a look there. Like I said, we already did a good job going over all those again. We're not going to repeat that again. We're not going to be those guys. We got the defense coming up next, but before we do, it's time to pay the bills. And let's go over some comments there, including I saw a fellow content creator there in the mix there too as well. So let's pay those bills real quick and get to the comments.
Enjoy the show. Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty. Let's see here. I'm trying to get back up to where we were here. All right. Here we go. All right. My dad was the first one here. Said JJ did everything asked of him on a night when the running game was strong. And that's right. 100%. He managed the game.
Yeah.
I feel like people take that as a bad thing sometimes, the game manager. It's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just a ceiling.
Tom Brady was a game manager, but
he was in college, and we're gonna get to that in a second because Connor was making comments about that. So let's see here. Deb says, when can draft deals be made? Can a GM contact a team now to get a number one pick, or do they have to wait until draft day? Nope, you can do whenever you want. That is a wide open thing at that point.
Rooney.
Yeah, you can trade for this year's, you can trade for next year's, you can trade for whatever you want. You can do anything with that. It's pretty much wild west. It's not like the
Wild West.
Is it the NBA that limits like you have to like do every other year or something stupid? One of them does that. I think it's the NBA. But no, in NFL you can do whatever you want. You can trade picks whenever you want. Giant Yankee says, I would take Bo Nix over Penix. Love his TD to interception ratio. No way I take JJ. I sign a good lineman, draft Jaden Daniels, draft O-line, best receiver in the second round. I'm not a hater of Bo. I just not 100% sold on him yet. I'm hoping when I do
watch more tape.
Yeah, when I do watch more tape that I'm more sold on him. I guess the Auburn thing is what scares me more. And I want to go back and watch what happened there and see the difference, not in him necessarily with the people around him, because that's what I've heard a lot about. I want to see the difference in him specifically. I want to see, was there a change in his mechanics? Because if you had to go to a lower grade, so to speak, of college to go ahead and succeed, and you didn't improve your mechanics, then it just was one of two things: either you got
better talent around you,
better talent around you because Auburn's not exactly a good school, or
less
you couldn't handle the better defenses of the SEC.
I was about to say, or you're playing against less talented defenses.
Exactly. So I want to see if the mechanics improvement, because if I see mechanics improvement and changes in his motion, that tells me that it was.
I have seen, though, quite a few mock drafts where he goes close, right around that 5 spot. So,
yeah,
I have to watch the tape.
We'll see. My dad says we need a pass rusher. There's one of the Jets that should be available. Oh, we're gonna get to the defense, and he's on the list. Don't you worry, I got you. Connor says Tom Brady ranks 3rd in Michigan history with 710 attempts, 422 completions, 4th, 5,355 yards, 62.3 completion percentage, 32 touchdowns, and then greater than symbol. JJ might do better in the NFL too. He might. There's always that possibility.
There's always that possibility, but come on.
But if you're expecting to be the next Tom Brady,
yeah,
I mean, that's acting a little much. But I mean, again, part of what it is when I say a game manager as well, was he a game manager because that's what Harbaugh asked, or is he a game manager because that's what the ceiling is? We won't know until he goes to the NFL, or we see him in scenarios where we can go, okay, I see this potential here.
I mean, how many quarterbacks did Harbaugh have in the NFL before I go back down? 2, correct?
I'd have to look up the history of the 49ers starting quarterbacks, to be very frank with you. But I mean, this is
pretty
the same
sure
guy.
It was Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick when Harbaugh.
No, he also had Blaine Gabbert. I think didn't Blaine Gabbert take over for Kaepernick when Kaepernick was getting benched?
Everyone forgot about the Gabbert. Come on, was he really a quarterback?
He was. He was the guy who took the ball from under center.
No offense, Gabbert, because you're way more talented than I am.
I'm just saying, he did.
You're not wrong there. But
he was
I
there.
Saying, like, JJ looked more like, and I said it before. Like a game manager, like I'm gonna say it again. He looked more like a game manager, like Alex Smith. He'll throw you the ball down the field if need be, or he'll pass it off. He doesn't need all the guts and glory. Just do what the team asks you to do and just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're gonna see, what happens with him, and I'm kind of curious to see what he does as far as with these exhibition games that we talked about there, like the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. I'm not sure which ones he's signed up or if he has signed up for any. I know Bo has signed up for some of them, but I'm kind of curious to see if he does do that and how he looks in that, because now you're talking about going up against the best of the best.
The best of the best, sir.
Okay, Men in Black. Here come Men in Black.
I watched it a few months ago.
I knew you'd do that too. Connor says, personally, I think Harbaugh is staying with Michigan, but since he's in trouble, he may leave. I think his ego is going to make him leave. He's going to leave.
Well, he got in trouble twice this year. I'm pretty sure.
Also, I wonder how much the NIL is going to change college football, and the coaches all want to leave. Kind of like what I think will happen with Saban, because it's bad enough you spend all offseason trying to get new talent. Now you have to talk your current talent to stay. And the best way to do that is getting money to them, these NALs.
Yeah.
It's changed. It's changed the sport. It does.
It is.
See, my dad says, I don't think Winston is the answer. And I'm not so sure.
We agree with you.
Yeah. I'm not sure he's the answer, but he might be a decent answer available based on options depending on what happens.
Listen, living in New Jersey isn't the best option, but sometimes you have to get a bridge to go over a river to get to your better options.
Are you calling Pennsylvania or New York one? I'm curious.
I'm just saying you have to get out of Jersey. You have to go over a bridge for the most part. Sometimes you need that bridge quarterback.
Like I said, my main thing is
past your next option as well, like Pennsylvania.
Like I said, my whole thing with that is just the fact that if we can fix his issues, he's a cheap option, as you mentioned, to be a bridge quarterback for a year or two until we get the long-term answer. And at the very least, he's young enough to play for the next 5 years or so. So we'll see. I will say this, though. If he comes to play for the Giants, New Jersey grocery stores. Hide your crab legs. Hide your crab legs.
That's terrible.
Connor says definitely need bigger receivers and strong, not brittle ones we keep getting. Yeah, like I said, it's what we're missing, I think. My dad says this is a deep draft for receivers. 100%. I just don't think it's a big enough need for us to go out and get one in the first couple of rounds. And if we're going to get a number one, it's going to have to come from there. But I think the quarterback need is so much stronger. I think the offensive line at the guard position is so much stronger that I see a second-round pick for like a guard. We have another one available as well because there's 2 second-round picks. Is there a receiver worth getting at that point? I don't know. It depends on how the draft falls.
Yeah, we're not, like, once again, we'll be doing more of a deep dive into what's out there for the receiver core. But the generation talent that everyone's looking at is, Harrison Jr. and he's going top 5 most likely, top 3 most likely.
That's it. I don't think he gets past the Cardinals. Worst case scenario.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's. So once you go after it, like I kind of have to do the deep dive who's there. But once again, if you get that quarterback, you get that dude that we think that could lead our team. We do. We got Hyatt, who is a dude. He's a fast dude that's receiving as a receiver.
And you got Slayton.
We got Wandale.
Assuming we keep Slayton. They got 2 really fast guys.
Yeah, well, I'm getting there. But we also got Wandale, who is also a great pick that we had, who has been proven himself to be, and I'm going to say his 2 freshman years, even though he got beat up his
freshman and a half.
Year. Yeah. Like, he's proven himself to be like a receiver that could grab the ball and make some plays.
Yeah.
You got Slayton, another guy who has the oopsie dropsies every once in a while. But
didn't this year, Didn't this year.
No.
For the record.
I said every once in a while. I'm saying.
He
definitely improved. So the past 4 years, he's been our top receiver, is one of the fast guys. So, like, we got guys. If you get that dude at quarterback that could throw it to our guys, it changes how they play and how we look at them. Because if all of them, we'll just say, get an extra 200 yards, now you're looking at Slayton. What do we see? He had 700 yards.
Yeah, he's a consistent 700-yard guy, basically.
Yeah, he's pushing 1,000 yards. You got Hyatt as his rookie, when it was like 40 yards. Like
could you imagine Slayton with an actual legitimate actual legitimate quarterback?
Yeah, a guy that could actually throw him the ball consistently. Like
I wonder for all the talk we've had about how did the Giants ruin DJ? Did the Giants ruin Slayton? Did we take away potentially his chance to reach his top potential?
Yeah, I won't go as far as to push it as the DJ situation, but I understand what you're saying because
we didn't do right by him.
We didn't, and there's so many talks about dropping him, getting rid of them. Like, do we keep him? Do we let him go?
Keep him.
Do we pay him?
Extend him. Rework that deal. Extend him.
Yes, extend him 100%. Especially since he worked on catching the ball and not dropping it. Listen, if you put Elmer Glue on your gloves, good for you, man.
Listen, we basically drafted. I'm gonna call it like it is. In this, we drafted Hyatt to replace him. If you look at the contract, the way it was written, the second year is kind of fugazi because we could drop him. We talked about our cut candidate show. Go back to that one; it's a good show as well. They're all good shows, every single one.
Yeah.
But we talked about it. We can cut Slayton and save like $6 million because of the way this contract was written. It was written to be a 1-year deal with an out if we needed it. And that whole reason was because they wanted to replace him and they drafted Hyatt to replace him. He has outperformed Hyatt.
I think also what they did as well is anyone that wasn't picked by the regime that is now taking over is expendable. And if you prove yourself, you earn the spot. But if you didn't, booyah, you're gone.
I'm sorry, but if that's the case, we can do a deep dive, and this is another day, another topic, in the people that Joe Shane has drafted. But I'm sorry, both the classes have been underwhelming.
Well, everyone was underwhelming this past year. So,
but I'm saying, I was saying it's been very underwhelming. We've gotten rid of a lot of the Gettleman guys, and we've gotten to where this is Joe Shane's team. The draft picks have been very underwhelming. Whether we're talking about Azudu, McKeithen, Bellinger having a worse second year, Eric Gray being a waste of a pick, basically. There's a lot of things out there that I can complain about. Evan Neal. I mean, there's a lot of things we can complain about there. So anyway, it's a totally different topic for another day. Totally different topic. Let's see. My dad also says I don't want any more 30-plus-year-old receivers unless they are tight ends who can also block. And it's weird how tight ends always last. Look at Mercedes Lewis, who's 45 years old and still playing. He's not 45, guys, but still he's old. Yeah. And again, I would take a guy like that on a short-term deal, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't take him. I wouldn't give him, 5 years to $100 million, something crazy like that. My dad also says. My dad says if we don't re-sign Barkley, we have a little more money to spend on other needs, and 100% right. I don't think I'm telling you. If I have to grab a crystal ball right now, we're not keeping Barkley. We're not keeping Xavier McKinney. We're moving on from both. And it's because of money, not because of want. It's not because of desire. It's because of money.
Definitely one of them.
Yeah. I said I will see. We'll see if I'm right. Giant Yankee says I like Adunze, but not at 6. And again, he's a good guy that if we can trade back to the middle of the round, a 13, 15 or something like that, and get him then, wouldn't be a bad pickup. And then get the quarterback in the second round or trade back up into the end of the first round to get him. I'd be fine with that. Connor says, need young receivers. I'll take any of those receivers Penix has, Polk or Adunze, etc. The problem is that we have a lot of needs.
We also have a lot of young receivers.
We do. A veteran guy, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to teach. I really don't think so. My dad says Ridley is a number 1. Yeah, he could. He also says no receivers are signing with us until we have someone who can get them the ball. I think that in the end, money talks.
Look at D-Hop. He signed with Ryan Tannehill.
Well, he also had no other option. Nobody else wanted him, in all fairness. There's a lot of hype, and he's still not a bad player, but for some reason, nobody wanted him. I wonder if there's some kind of personality issues with him that kind of been hidden over the years, because it's weird that nobody wanted him this year.
He did talk a lot of off-scene, behind the scenes. Well, I shouldn't say behind the scenes because it was open. Different, sports media. He was on bar stools, who would you want to play for in his free agency? It's you can't say anything, but, he'll lean towards, Patriots, maybe. Carolina?
Yeah. They said there's something going on. My dad says Gesicki can't block. Yeah, no, he's a receiving tight end. That's all he is. He's
an upgrade cager.
He's like the Wish version of Waller.
Timu is the new one. He's a Timu version.
He's a Timu? Oh, yeah. He also says we need a right tackle and let Neal try left guard. Yeah, I'd like to let Neal try left fry cook. Neal needs to go away as far as I'm concerned. Connor says problem with tight ends is they focus on just one, like Waller. Got to mix it up. Same with wide receivers. Got to throw to another. Can't just throw to one guy. They seem like they throw into him, not others. Yeah, you got to mix it up, and I like mixing it up overall. But you still have to have a guy that actually the defenses have some fear of. And if we lose Waller and Barkley, who are you fearing in this offense?
Evan Neal.
No, not if you're on the offense. Who are the defenses? Who are the defenses?
I'm sorry, I misheard you. Sorry.
Let's see. Saquon seating or going? He says, "Oops, Saquon staying or going?" Connor says, yeah, I think he's going." Big Blue Avenue. I told you another content creator there. They're good guys. If you haven't gone ahead and follow them, 2 co-hosts, by the way. So and same as us there. One being a female, and I love when you see women succeeding in things with the NFL and everything. You don't see that enough, so I'm all for it. Van Roten or Hunt. I said I will go in the end with the guy who I think is going to be cheaper. has experience with the Priscilla's blocking schemes. Obviously, they're in Vegas, so yeah, Van Ruden, I'll take him in a heartbeat there. Though it does scare me a little bit how bad he was with the Jets.
Well,
it does scare me
a
little bit.
I mean, the one positive is now he's got the same coach he just had. So
yeah, I'm just saying that's the one that scares me a little because I remember seeing him in a green uniform and it wasn't good. Luckily, he'll be in a blue uniform in that scenario, so once we have too many flashbacks.
Yeah,
the tints are so similar. Connor says, "Flash, savior of the universe. Flash, he'll save every one of us." I'm not sure why we went to Flash Gordon all of a sudden, but I'm all for it.
Is he watching Ted and Peacock? Did you Peacock to watch the Chiefs game?
I did see that the Peacock is going to have a Ted show
Ted prequel. Yeah,
no Ted show. Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
It's a prequel. It's like when they're in high school.
That one.
I heard it was good. It's out. I heard it was good.
Is it out? Okay, I'll just check it. I'm off tomorrow. Maybe I'll check an episode or two off there. Connor says, "You think we're hiring guys too quick and not getting a better outlook on them?" No, I don't think so. The only guy we hired quick really is Priscilla. But I think that was a planned move all along, like Rob alluded to before. And I think that they already kind of had an idea of who they might like. Priscilla and Dable have connections from the both being former Belichick guys. So yeah, I don't think that's too quick. Obviously the two guys we're talking about this episode in the beginning, one of them has worked for the Giants before. They know what they're getting. One of them coached, one of the best running backs in the last 10 years there at that point. So yeah, I'm good with it. I'm not going to be upset with that one there. Big Blue Abbott also says Cody Ford, maybe backup utility guy, former Bills second round pick. The big thing for me is that's a spot that we need is if we're going to go ahead and keep Evan Neal at right tackle. Let's say hypothetically we do that. We need a guy who can play tackle. And I know Cody Ford's play guard and tackle, but we need a swing tackle kind of guy to at least push Evan Neal, because he's just been handed a starting position, and I'm not taking it. Connor says, was thinking Arch Manning should go to Michigan, especially if Harbaugh stays, since Texas QB Ewers isn't going to draft. Harbaugh would make him great. I don't think Manning's leaving. He's making a ton of money sitting on the bench right now. He'll get a chance to start. Ewers will probably go on after one more year, and then Manning will be good to go. I thought Ewers would leave this year, though. I did. But, sometimes things change. Obviously, he knows something, or he wouldn't be staying. Connor says we should trade back for picks. Yeah, we've talked about that. I'm all for that. Again, depending on who is on the board when we go to pick. That's what it all boils down to. He also says Hyatt didn't step up yet. Confused why? I think part of it is we talked about it when we drafted him. He was but I'm saying when we drafted him, he was a project. He needed to learn routes better. We talked about that. A lot of coaches said that, not just Giants coaches. Again, you mentioned as well the offense. The offense was a problem. He was open quite often. Especially since
he worked on the routes. Like that was definitely, like, we've talked about that quite a bit. And like there's been, you saw it in the field. Like he definitely ran routes, got open. Just poor offensive line, poor quarterback play, and no time to throw the ball with a guy that could get down the field. You get open in 3 seconds, 20 yards down the field.
Connor also says, I saw Julio Jones open a lot in Philly, and they weren't throwing to him. That's because Jalen Hurts was busy throwing to the other team.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
And also Julio's like 45.
My dad says Waller's contract was restructured last year, so there's not as much savings in cutting him. We still saved $6.7 million. So that's still a legit savings. I'll take it. Connor says, heard McCarthy staying in Dallas. Thank God Bill won't go there. Yep, that is official. I did see that. Mike McCarthy staying there as he should. He should have a job for life.
Yeah,
keep on losing. Listen, keep on losing, guys.
Get that team 10+ wins every year and get their hopes up every time you go to the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. He said hated when Parcells went there again. That hurt a little for me to see Parcells in the Cowboy gear and all. That just wasn't something I liked. All right, let's get going on the defensive side here, guys, because we're already an hour and a half in. We haven't even touched the defense yet. Whew. Usual. These episodes, we're getting longer and longer.
I was about to say, we keep going 2 hours.
I don't know if we need to do more nights or what the deal is, but whew. Defensive line here is a little quicker here. First one, I think you guys may recognize the name, Leonard Williams. I put him in there just because, keep in mind, he's a free agent at the end of the year. That deal is over. Do we re-sign Leonard Williams? It wouldn't be nearly the amount of money at that point.
So cheaper cost.
Now, I did hear this, that he bought a house in Seattle, and he planned on staying there long term. But listen, buying a house for an NFL player who's making $20 million a year, it's not the same as you and I buying a house.
Yeah. Did he buy it outright, or did he do the smart financial thing and actually get a mortgage so he could improve his credit?
Yeah. I'm sure he bought it outright. Didn't want to deal with paying that kind of interest rate. But again, he liked his time here. He left on very good terms. I can't say I'd be entirely shocked if he came back at a much cheaper rate than he was last year. That's for sure. But again, it depends on what he wants to do.
And especially what's going on, because I'm pretty sure he bought the house before Sneaky Pete sneakily went to be an analyst for the team, not the head coach.
You just never know. On the season, Leonard Williams, 18 games. How weird is that here to say that he played 18 games? He did.
No buy for that man.
No. Well, yeah, it wasn't. There's no buy because they already had the buy for Seattle before he got there. We didn't have the buy after the Giants there. So 18 games, 62 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. And listen, I know he wasn't like he was in that 10-sack season, guys. He's still a good player. He's still 29 years old. He's still a player.
Yeah. And as he went there too, like that's when Seattle got caught with the injury bug. That was obviously not with Leo, but
yeah,
they got caught with the injury bug and they went downhill. Like they were supposed to make the playoffs, but Green Bay snuck right in there.
I'm still saying it. Leonard Williams is cursed. Everywhere he goes, loses.
We'll say that if he comes back. Jeez.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't take him back. Next up, another guy here. This is a really old timer here. We're talking here. I don't know if he's going to retire or what the deal is, but I like him. I've always liked him. I like him as a veteran guy. He's a stopgap kind of guy there, which, again, we lost Leonard Williams. We never really replaced him. I wasn't too big a fan of Nacho this year with us, even though I like Nacho as a guy. He was a nice guy when I met him. But, yeah, just got to look at getting an extra guy that defensive line. Calais Campbell, 37 years old. How weird does that sound? 37 years old. Played for the Falcons last year. Listen to the numbers last year. It wasn't bad. 17 games, 56 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. So, basically get the same kind of output that Leonard Williams did in one less game. He said he still got it. I'm not saying he's all pro like he was when he was younger, but he still got it at 37.
He's got the moves like Jagger.
Yeah, he's got the moves like Jagger.
I'm dating myself.
Like Jagger. I got the song in my head now. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to go to the edge position, guys. And there's where we're going to talk about a lot of guys here, the edge room here. So we're going to go a little quicker here because we're already an hour and a half in, like I said. Daniel Hunter, 29 years old with the Vikings, 17 games, 83 tackles, 16.5 sacks, 23 tackles for loss. The only reason I'm even including him in here is because he's going to be a big name. There are rumors the Vikings do not plan on tagging him, which I think is crazy. I would tag the shit out of that guy because, you got to go ahead and keep a guy that does that kind of season for you. And I understand I think they cut him last offseason and re-signed him with one of those kind of deals so he take less money. But yeah, he's a legit player. And I hate to ever buy high. We talked about that when we re-signed Dexter Lawrence. I don't like to re-sign guys off their career years. That's what you're doing if you re-sign him now. Tag him. Sign him next year. Because he's probably not going to do 16.5 sacks again.
Probably not. I mean, who knows? He may. I mean, it wasn't like they were a powerhouse in defense.
Yeah. So, but like I said, that's why I have him on here. Another guy that I keep hearing about being a free agent that I got to say, I'm only including him on here because a lot of people are including him as a potential free agent. If this man is a free agent and the Jaguars let him go, there's a reason the Jaguars are the Jaguars. I'm going to word it that way, point blank. Josh Allen, still just 26 years old, went to high school, by the way, in Montclair, New Jersey, guys. He's a local. Montclair, for those who aren't aware of geography-wise, is a hop, skip, and a jump to Giant Stadium.
Literally, you play hopscotch, and you get right to East Rutherford. Yeah,
like literally, it's right there. It's a 10-minute drive, even in North Jersey traffic.
Fun fact, though, about Montclair High School. The last episode of Sopranos was shot there.
Were you in that episode, by the way? For those who don't know, Rob was in The Sopranos.
I was.
Oh, yes.
Right when Dirty started playing, and you saw that, you saw me.
There he is. There he is. As seen on TV.
The Rob, the blur.
Here he is.
Blobber.
Here he is still on in the entertainment business here in a different way. Anyway, 17 games, 66 tackles, 17 and a half sacks, 17 tackles for loss, guys. That's a big monster season. And that's been his best season. And he's coming into his own. This is the time where he's hitting his peak at 26. You know, the late 20s is like the peak for these guys. So, yeah. If he becomes available, and I know a lot of people say, oh, we don't have any money. I understand we don't have a lot of money. But you can give him a low number the first year to work around if you have to. Because after next year, DJ's gone. We just saved $40 million, guys. So when I say we're bargain bin shopping, that doesn't mean we're not going to get one guy who is not bargain bin. We will. I just don't know who that guy's going to be. There's so many needs. Who do you want to go splash with? But and like if you're going to go splash, that's a nice splash, guys.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of these deals, you come in, you pay the guy $7.5 million this year, then you give him 14 next year, then it's 35 the following year, with an option to get rid of him, and then you can extend the agreement and not pay him that 35. And
they do it all the time, the time. Next up, our annual presentation of Yannick Ngakoue on the free agency. Oh my God! Every single year, 28 years old, played for the Bears last year. 6 teams now in the last 5 years. This is the only year he hasn't succeeded as a pass rusher.
Oh, I mean,
he's not good at stopping the run. He's a guy who's specifically a pass rush skill kind of guy. This year, 13 games because he broke his ankle end of the season on the IR. 22 tackles, 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. And I know a lot of Giants fans are going, "Oh, that's a pretty bad, season there at that point." Yeah, but that's not necessarily that bad when you consider the fact that
he's playing for the Bears.
I'm just looking at look at our year this year. I mean, Kayvon obviously had a lot of sacks, but who else had a lot of sacks? I'm looking at obviously, we didn't get a lot of from Azeez Ojulari. I'm trying to look it up real quick to see, but they keep on giving up how many sacks we allowed. It's bad. That's literally when you Google it. Most sacks on the Giants 2023. It gives you most sacks allowed 2023. But yeah, let me take a look real quick here because now I'm curious. Where would he be? All right. No, not most times sacked quarterbacks. That's what they're giving me now. I'm serious. Oh my God. I understand we sucked. Okay, leave me alone. Yeah, so he would have tied for third with Dexter Lawrence. No, I'm sorry, 4 sacks compared to 4.5. He would have been fourth. He would have been fourth in the team. The only players that have more than 3 sacks in our team, guys, Dexter Lawrence, 4.5, Jihad Ward, 5, who's going to probably go with Wink wherever he goes, and Kayvon at 11.5. So, yeah. Again, a guy who gets to the quarterback, not a bad idea. I'm going to give you guys another guy who is going to be a big ticket guy. Who I want nothing to do with. Let me be very clear with this. I want nothing to do with him.
because all the hype that he's gotten since he came into the
all
league.
the hype. Oh my God, this guy's hyped more than anybody else. Chase Young, who's still just 24 years old, by the way, guys.
Forever young.
I can't believe he's still 24.
Young.
Played last year with the Commanders and the 49ers. 16 games, 25 tackles, 7.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. Again, I know he's got a lot of hype. He's got talent. He's not a bad player.
What was his injury last year? He was coming off the ACL, or
I believe he was butt hurt.
Yeah, that could be it.
I'm not sure. He's had so many injuries. That's the other thing. It's like I don't know. I'm not as big on him. I'm really just not.
I'm pretty sure I think he tore his ACL the year prior, and then he was supposed to come back against the first game against the Giants last year, and they didn't. Then
yeah. I said I'm just not. I'm not a fan, and he may have a great year next year, and I look stupid, but I guarantee you, over the course of his career, I'll be right.
Well, I mean, he's so injury prone. I'd say it like that, but
it is what it is. Some guys just are,
and that's, I guess, it's also Giants' MO.
Yeah. Next up, another guy I think would be a cheap option if you want to get a guy for a year or two. Bud Dupree, 30 years old, played for the Falcons last year, 16 games, 39 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. Again, 6.5 tackles would have put him second on our team. So, yeah, he still gets to the quarterback. Not like he did when he was with the Steelers, but he still gets there. Here's an interesting one for you that I think would be really, really cheap. Really cheap, guys. Clavon Chasen, 24 years old, played for the Jags. You may remember him as the big hyped guy coming out of LSU a couple years ago in the draft. Has done nothing. We're very clear. Has done nothing for the Jaguars. 17 games last year, 0 starts, 13 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. This is a guy that if you want a project to try to repair, here's your guy.
Yeah, that's a guy. Yeah, you make sure you know who your defensive coordinator is first.
20th overall pick in the draft a couple of years ago, guys. Again, underperformed the hell. I'm not saying he's a good player. I'm saying if you think you have a guy who can fix people and you think he's the guy that you can fix.
And when you're shopping at Walmart or you're shopping at S-Mart, you're
shopping at the Dollar Tree right now.
Yeah.
Like, I would not
shop smart, shop S-Mart.
I would give him like $5 million. That's it. I wouldn't give him any crazy money.
You probably give him less.
I think because of the name, someone else is gonna have the same idea. I really do. I think somebody else is gonna say the same thing. If we can fix him and get a good pass rusher to be on the bench and come off in passing situations, get him for $5 million. $5 million is nothing nowadays.
Sadly, you're right.
Not for him, at least. For me, it's everything. If someone wants to hand me $5 million, I'll retire right now. Seriously, I would. Scary part. I would not. We'd be 2 giant goofballs nonstop, live 24/7. Next up is a big name. He actually got a good career too overall, but he never lived up to the hype of his draft status. But had a good year last year, and that's Jadeveon Clowney, 30 years old, played for the Ravens last year, 43 tackles, 9.5 sacks. Again, always been a good guy against the run too, as well. Which you look at edge guys, you always talk about sacks numbers, and we're doing it here, obviously, but you don't really hear necessarily how they are against the run. This is a guy who does play the run, so always available for some reason, moves around like crazy. So, you want another edge player? There you go. He might get a big contract this year, though, but I don't know. You never know. It's weird how you see some of these older guys that have like a 9-sack season like this, and all of a sudden nobody wants them again next year. So, we'll see. Here's one that I know Connor asked about here in the comments here. Brian Burns, still just 25 years old, played for the Panthers, 16 games, 50 tackles, 8 sacks, 16 tackles for loss. I'm going to tell you this. I don't want him. And I don't want him for one reason. He basically kind of insinuated he was waiting for the season to be over while the season was still going. I don't like that. I don't give a shit if you're on a team that went 2-15, whatever they did. You still should be there for the fans, for your teammates, for your coaching staff.
Your own ego.
And this was his worst. This was the worst year he's had in a while. So I'm just not so sure that doesn't preclude me from going, you know what? That's an issue. That's a personality trait that I'm concerned about. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the guy personally. Listen, if the Giants talk to him and all of a sudden I'm wrong and go for it. I'll trust Shane. But I just can't. I can't trust that. If you look at his career, though, sack-wise, obviously we can go into the numbers and everything else there. 7.5, 9, 9, 12.5, 8. So he had his worst sack number. You know, go as far as his tackles, lowest tackles he's had tied since his rookie year as well. Tied for his lowest QB hits number since his rookie year. Just didn't have a good season by his standards. So when you say comments like that, then on top of that, it makes me question how much you were really trying. And how much you were trying to stay healthy because you're being a free agent. And I hate to make that kind of accusation, so I'm not going to flat out accuse of it. I'm saying the question is there in my brain if that's what happened. And I don't like that. I just don't. All right. We got 2 more names here real quick. One is a name that you guys will be familiar with. Ms. Days and the Big D. Dante Fowler Jr., 29 years old, played for the Cowboys last year. 17 games, no starts, 13 tackles, 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. This is a good edge bench guy. We don't have depth at that position, guys.
I was going to say that's your depth.
He's getting a little long in the tooth. He's 29. He's getting towards that 30 year soon. Might be a guy we can get relatively cheap. That's the kind of guy I wouldn't mind having on the bench. And in a pinch, start him if Azeez Ojulari can't play. Because it depends on what you do and what your thoughts are on Azeez. And that's really what depends on what you do with this edge position. We talked about some big name guys. If we get those big name guys, guess who goes to the bench? Azeez Ojulari.
Yeah, real fast.
And given his injuries, is he maybe better coming in specifically on passing downs and being an extra rusher? Again, this is the thought process the Giants have to have this offseason with him. And it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world to sit there and say that. There's a reason he dropped to us to the end of the second round when he was a potentially top 10 pick going into the draft. Injury concerns. As what's happened? Injuries. So sometimes you just got to accept what you got. So you know what? This is a guy who gets injured. If we play him too often, let's play him less often, and let's plan for him to get hurt once or twice a year.
Yeah, hopefully nothing major.
I'm okay with that with guys who have talent. Azeez has talent. Call it what it is. The man has talent. One more guy here who is known to be more of a situational pass rusher. Guy my dad alluded to before. Big Blue Avenue also in the comments section. I see they also talked about him as well. And that's Bryce Huff. Played last year for the Jets, so obviously you just all the live in the New York area, probably familiar with the name. 25 years old. Last year, 17 games, 29 tackles, 10 sacks, 21 QB hits. Here's the interesting part. He played in 42% of the defensive snaps last season, guys. And he got 10 sacks.
Yeah.
That's
nice.
The stat that I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. And I'm not so sure he'll ever be a full-on, every-down edge rusher kind of guy because he has issues against the run. But if you're telling me, hypothetically, 42% of the defensive snaps, you put him to 82%, he's a 20-sack guy, what?
That's what I was going to say. You're talking about like 24 sacks if he plays 100% of the snaps.
Well, here's the one thing
you're not going to do that, but
here's what you got to consider though when you do the math that way. Though at the same point though is they put him in specifically on passing downs. So if you played him, a regular starting position kind of thing, he probably would have had like 13, 14 sacks.
You're right.
Because he was in for the passing downs. I'm just trying to, it just blows my mind. 42% of the snaps and you have 10 sacks.
Yeah.
Like you would have led your team on many teams in this league. You know, like I saw a stat that Montez Sweat led the Bears and the Commanders in sacks this year, which is a crazy stat. He had 6.5, I think 6.5 with the Commanders and 6 with the Bears, or vice versa. One of them had the half. So 10 would have led those two teams right there. I said there's plenty of teams that don't get a guy who has 10 sacks. That's not as common as it used to be, I feel like. It's now much more of a team pass rush where this guy has 6, this guy has 7, that guy has 5, this guy has 4. Instead of having the one guy gets 10 or 12 a year. There's not that many of those guys out there.
No. I mean, it's not as frequent, but there's definitely those guys out there. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's a team effort. Listen, if your team collectively, you got one guy that gets you 13 sacks all year, but the rest of the guys only lose you to 20. But then you got everyone that's getting you 7 on that line.
Yeah.
Or 8. What's better?
Yeah. So I'm saying, I think that I'm not saying either one's wrong. I'm just saying to get that in this kind of NFL, playing that kind of snap count, that's impressive. Now, he's never done it before. Again, we've talked about I hate paying people off a career year. That could be what you're doing here with him. Could very well. On the plus side, he also would not need a real estate agent.
Yeah, he's already here.
I wonder if that is something that the players think about in that scenario. Like, well, if I just moved over to the Jets, or if I just moved over to the Giants, I'm
sure it's in the back of their mind.
My kids wouldn't have to change schools. I wouldn't have to buy a new house. Like all these things, I'd be thinking about it.
A new real estate agent.
Yeah. I'll have to lose that 5% fee to the real estate agent when I sell my house. Let's go over. We got one more position that I want to talk about, and then I got one that we're briefly touch base on. So it doesn't like 10 minutes, guys, and that's it probably here tonight. Cornerback. We got to talk about that because Adoree Jackson is going to be gone. Let's be very honest here. His time as a Giant is probably over. You know, they don't like him. They haven't liked him. You can tell that to a certain degree. I don't think it's a personality thing as much as a fit thing. But it's also the fact that he gets injured all the time. He's afraid to tackle. He is a speed guy. He's getting up there in his late 20s. Do you want to pay a guy and risk he loses one step because of age or injury, and now you're paying him $10-15 million a year when he's not that good anymore?
Yeah,
because that's the risk you take if you re-sign him. I hate to say it that way. It's a business thing. It's not personal. That's the truth of the scenario. So here's a couple guys. Some of them are more stopgap kind of guys because I'd rather draft another receiver and develop somebody. To be honest, I wouldn't even necessarily be against using Nick Cloud in that role. He's played the role before with no problem. But if you go against, you get some corners. Here we go. Let's talk about some corners. First name is an interesting name because again, this goes in the category of I think I can fix him. That's what this guy goes right into that category of, and that's Jeff Okudah. Still just 24 years old. Played for the Falcons last year. Plagued by injuries as a Lion. He was traded to the Falcons this offseason. This previous offseason, I should say. Started off the season great, but then struggled down the stretch. But this is the first time you see him healthy. So, do you think the injury issues are over? Do you think you can fix? Is it something he did because of how he played? Do you think you can help him play better for the whole season? Do you think he's a guy worth it? Because this is a guy that, remember when he came out of college? Oh my God, this was like, you can't miss. Like, if you had asked guys going into that draft, who was the prospect that is the safest bet? I guarantee you his name would have probably popped up by at least a few people.
And you got to think about it too, because like, you know, who's drafted by the Lions, right? So like,
yeah,
was it their staff that overworked him, why he's always getting injured? Like, was it the Lions?
I don't know.
Did they utilize him better?
Well, he did play with Campbell, and Campbell's coaching staff obviously does have, you know, some credibility in this league now. But he also played under Matt Patricia.
Well, that's the death of all defensive players.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, he's not a guy I give a lot of money to. But if you can get him cheap and you think you can fix him, it's worth throwing a 1-year flyer at him and see what you got.
Yeah.
I got some more veteran names now the rest of the way. That's only a younger guy that I'm like, Kendall Fuller is the first guy here. 29 years old, obviously played for the Commanders last year. If you're a Giant fan, you probably heard the name plenty of times. We played DC, whatever the name is that season. Veteran corner. He's never amazing. He's that guy that plays in the systems, and you go, okay, he held down the job. He's not going to make a Pro Bowl. He's not going to embarrass you. He's going to be somewhere in the middle. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if we do want Deonte Banks to be our number one. And again, he's a veteran. He's a guy that can help mentor Banks along the way as well. So, again, not a big name either. I don't think he's going to command a ton of money. So we'll see. Next up is the oldest guy that I have suggested on this entire list besides Campbell, who's obviously 37. It's hard to beat that number. And that's Stephon Gilmore. We saw him play obviously this year.
Happy's younger brother.
We saw him play obviously this year with the Cowboys. He's 33 years old, guys. He's a short-term solution at best, if you want to go that route. He's bound to fall off the cliff eventually, is the way I'm going to word this, because he's 33. Eventually, he's going to have that year where he's just not himself anymore. It could be this year even. Yeah. There's a risk when you sign a guy who's 33 years old that plays corner. But again, didn't look bad last year. I wouldn't sit there and say he was amazing last year. I wouldn't sit there and say he was a shutdown corner like he used to be back with the Patriots, 5-6 years ago. But again, we're not necessarily looking for amazing. We're looking for a guy who can be a backup, to second corner kind of guy. And I don't think it'll happen because I think Gilmore will want more money than we want to pay him. But sometimes the market tells you what you are.
Yeah, well.
Same as the market told DeAndre Hopkins this offseason what he is. And in that scenario, I wouldn't mind scooping him up. Play him for 1 year. Draft a guy, develop a guy, have him take over the next year. Not the worst idea.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Salty veteran.
Yeah. Next up, another guy who played with Stephon Gilmore just 2 years ago with the Colts, Kenny Moore. 28 years old, former Pro Bowler, started off his career as just a special teams ace and kind of worked his way up. So a decent, good, solid corner. I don't think he'll have another Pro Bowl season. I think those days may be done because he is 28. Again, that's a young man's game. Corner, it's a young man's game. But he's a guy who will hold his own for a few years at that point. If you want to give like a 3-year contract to, he won't embarrass himself. He's not going to be a stud. Just don't pay him as a stud, and that's fine. So, another guy got a little long in the tooth there. Steven Nelson, 30 years old, played for the Texans last year. Giant fans may remember him because he's been around the league, but he's been a former Chief, former Eagle, former Steeler. Got 115 career starts under his belt. You want to talk about a guy that could be a good mentor? 4 interceptions last year, 71.9 PFF grade.
The only problem is you can't trust a guy with 2 first names.
No, you can't. No, you can't. But, I mean, one of the big things you talk about with the Texans and what happened on their defense this year, besides the fact that obviously they got a defensive-minded coach that has a history of coaching well. Let's be honest, anybody can coach well in San Francisco. Just call it what it is. But the big thing was Derek Stingley, they said, took a big jump this year. You think this guy might have helped that? You think a guy with over 100 starts in his career at the corner position might have been able to give him some advice? Again, a guy I wouldn't break the bank for. But if you get him on a short-term deal that makes sense money-wise, might not be a bad addition. So, otherwise, if we got to go ahead and get a younger guy at that point, just draft somebody.
Yeah.
Just draft somebody. Let Nick McLeod go ahead and fight with him for the position. I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to spend tons of money on a guy that when Deonte Banks is supposed to be the guy. We drafted him number 1, first round there. You're supposed to be the guy. Be the guy.
Yeah, be our dude.
And he's didn't look bad rookie year. Listen, you and I were not happy when we drafted him. Neither one of us were. He had a very good rookie year. We're not always right. I'll admit it freely. We're usually right, but we have a show. That because YouTube lets anybody put a show on. One more position.
Netflix back in the day.
One more position I will say real quick, and this is more of a comment than give you guys names on. I would not be shocked at all if you look at getting a safety. I do think, my own personal opinion, Rob, you can say if you're different on this. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't think we keep Xavier McKinney. I think it's a combination of two things, a combination of positional value and the money we don't have, and the fact that, again, I've talked about this before, if we really wanted to keep him, we would not have wanted to even consider keeping Wink this year when he's basically let it be known through sources that he doesn't want to play for Wink. Now, he's not going to play for Wink if we keep him, obviously. My whole point is if your star player as a free agent doesn't like your defensive coordinator and refuses to play for him, you don't get up day one of the offseason to go, yes, we plan on having Wink back.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that as well. Because once again,
there's
alleged reporting. So
it's an ogre. There's onions.
An ogre. There's so many layers.
But like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if we go get ourselves a veteran safety at that point. With some starting experience at that point. Let Dayton Belton take the shot at it, but let the two of them fight it out basically for that spot. If you want to throw Owens from last year's draft class in there too as well, go for it. Because you heard a lot of good on him on the preseason, but you never saw him in the regular season, really. So there's a theme with that with our secondary late round picks. Because we had a certain corner, it was the second coming of Deion Sanders in the training camp, and then didn't make it the regular season basically at all. It didn't look that good in the times we did see him. Just saying. All right, guys. We're finally done. Ooh, we're 2 hours in, guys. Ooh, this is like the longest episode we've done except for the live draft coverage. Oh my God. It's 11 o'clock, guys. I can't believe you guys are still here. Thank you for staying with us here. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Again, oh my God, we're doing this all over again. Tomorrow, we're going to give you guys a preview of all the games coming up this weekend of the NFL playoffs. So we promise not to make it a 4-hour exposition here. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow night. Appreciate you guys all listening in and watching, and hope you guys enjoyed the coverage here of possible people we might go ahead and get there this offseason. Plus, also talk about our new coaches. As always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter/X, Twitch, Instagram as well. And of course, Rob's favorite,
Drew's LinkedIn.
Oh, yes, Drew's LinkedIn profile. And of course, as always, we are on the next day on all the fun audio podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google Podcasts, all the fun ones there. So go ahead and subscribe, hit the like if you haven't already. We appreciate you guys watching there. We do give you guys free content. All we do is ask is that you go ahead and say, hey, subscribe, ding, we like these guys, comment. Things like that help us out there. So appreciate it, guys. As always, Giant fans,
go G-Man!
Go G-Man! G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support. If you made it this long, you must have enjoyed it. So I am sure you have followed us on all the social media platforms. Of course, you have subscribed to the show on your favorite app as well and given us a top rating. Right? Right? Right?
Thank you to those who have signed up for our silver gold levels of membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.